So in this session I will give you an introduction to the force called turbulence, and with that you can do things like this. I will show you how it works in Blender, so let's minimize this and get right into Blender. This is just the default here. I will use this plane as an emitter, so I select the plane and I go to particle properties, and then in my particles I press the plus sign and I use 10,000 particles in this case and a long lifetime, so I put 1000. I don't want any velocity, so I set the normal to 0, and I would like to see the particles in a good way. So I go to viewport display and change display as to point and material to velocity and set a small size, so I think 0.05 will be okay. I take away the gravity, so I put gravity to 0. And now we need a force, so I press Shift A, force field, and I will use the turbulence, so I select turbulence. And I can show you how it looks, but I will give you a short explanation first. The force turbulence is very easy to explain because it's just like random movement, nothing more, nothing less. Often you use that together with another force. For instance, you can push or pull your particles using vortex, wind, or just the force. One of those three is often combined with turbulence to get things like I showed you in the beginning. Leaves that are blowing in the wind with some turbulence, then you put in this turbulence force. Okay, let's play the animation and see how it looks. We get this nice pattern here. Everything is moving around like this, and it looks really nice, and you can use that for art or something else. But if I should explain it for you, then we select this force here, and then we go to physics properties, and it looks really easy, only 3 parameters, but it's hard to control to get everything exactly as you want to. So we have the strength, the normal strength, we have the flow, and it's the normal flow, but you also have size. Size is the size of the turbulence, and easiest way just to show you. So I take up the strength rather high, and I will also use the flow, so I set that high as well. Then I just run this animation, and this is what happens. This is the force movement, and you can see that you get like a circular pattern that is this big. Let's do the same thing, but with a very small amount of size. So I set this to 0.010, and then you will see what happens. They can hardly move because the turbulence is so small that it's smaller than the particle. So it's just going around in a very small area like this. If we now take the size to around 5, you will see something completely different. So now everything is more like a tsunami. It's really big waves hitting something. I don't know what, but by using turbulence in this way. So you can get completely different patterns depending on what size you put in there. But that is really all parameters. You don't have any more parameters. It's only those 3 that you can use to create these fantastic patterns. So the magic to make everything correct is to learn how to use them. I can show how I did with the leaves. So we can take that file now, and you just download force_turbulence and then open it up in Blender. So then we get all the leaves here. If I just run the animation here, you can see all the leaves are falling down and you have some turbulence in. I run it again, and I think you should watch this area and see what happens. So now it runs. Now you can see everything is collected here in a group and that it's standing still. Almost all the time without any movement from the wind. So be careful when you work with turbulence, so you don't get like this natural movement in front of your camera, and you control it by using the flow. If I start by selecting my turbulence, which I have up here, and then go to physics properties to see how it looks, then I use my strength, I have a rather big size because I would like big movement on my leaves here. I also have a small amount of flow here, and that is to make those big movements visible. If I don't have any flow, it will be movement, but they will be so fast and quick so you hardly notice them. So with just a small amount of flow, everything will look good. If I, on the other hand, have a big amount of flow, then it will go slow, but it will also stand still in a lot of places. So now I have a big amount of flow, and yes, it's moving forward. Most of them, but not all. A lot of them are just standing still there. So the trick here is to find the perfect amount of flow together with the perfect amount of strength to make everything work. And it's the same with the wind here, that I use a small amount of flow to get those leaves moving in a good way. So that's the thing here. Nothing else. The rest is just to put everything together and put your forces where they should be. One thing more I should mention before we end this session is that the placement of this turbulence matters a lot regarding to distance and angle from the emitter. So if I now have like this and run the animation, you can see that I get turbulence movement right here where I have the forces, as you can see now. It's moving a lot there. So if I now move that and put it like here, and then run again, then something else happens. So you still have movement all over, but now you can see more grouping here instead of up here. So depending on where you have this, then the turbulence will be different on different places. So if you can't get everything to work exactly as you want to, then just move the turbulence around until you find a spot that works in a good way. So that is how I did this. If I should explain how I rendered it, then I had it like this in the render view. You can render it like this and it will be an okay clip. But what I did was that I rendered this with transparent background, and then I used a compositor to this image in the background instead of having it when I render it. And it's quicker. And then you can do some color balance and so on to make everything look really, really good. So that is what I did. But you have all set up here, so it's just for you to render. And if you want to render it like this, or if you would replace the transparent background, put some other image in and use some compositing, well, that's up to you. But when it comes to the force turbulence, it's not much more to say. This is how it works with random movements together with like wind, vortex or force, and you will have some really good things happening. So just see you in next session, and bye for now.